Hello, fellow members of the Alliance, and welcome to the Alliance Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rod Villagomez. You can find me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Find the show on Twitter at AllianceFBPod. Got a new way of presenting all these game recaps to you. I hope you like it. We're going to look at 3 things to look for in each of these games, or to get out of each of these games. But we're gonna do a different approach here to game recaps. So it's not your ordinary game recap show. If you like it, let me know. If not, we'll do some more changing. But all right, let's get right to it. We've got a lot of action to break down this weekend and a lot of fun to have. So we're going to get right to the show. Well, game 1 of the weekend treated us to a week 1 rematch. It was the Arizona Hotshots taking on the Salt Lake Stallions in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. If you didn't get a chance, and I'm sure if you did watch the broadcast, then you know what I'm talking about. That was a beautiful backdrop for football. So Salt Lake, you have got a gorgeous set of mountains with snow to watch a football game, and I want to go to Salt Lake to watch a football game, even though I'm sure it was really, really cold. But again, it was a great place to play some football, and it was a good game, actually. It wasn't how Arizona wanted it to go, and in fact, it wasn't the same outcome as week 1. It was quite the opposite. Salt Lake actually ended up walking away with the victory in that one, 23-15 over the Arizona Hotshots. And so we are going to introduce a new setting for this game recap section that we got going on here. Everybody does game recaps, so we're not going to do game recaps anymore. So what we're going to do is we are going to highlight 3 things that you should take away from this game, or 3 things you should know. However, there's going to be 3 things that you need to walk away with from this game, and we're just going to highlight 3 things to take away. And so let's start that right now with number 1. The Stallions defense is heating up. This is a squad that looks like it's coming together at just the right time in the season, and they are led by Carter Schultz, who is a beast. And this guy is all over the field, and we'll talk a little bit about him later on, but he has led this defense, and it looks like a very vicious defense. And the Arizona Hotshots offense was hard for Wolford to get anything going in that game. And short of Rashard Ross, and we'll talk about that later too, it was just hard for them to find rhythm. It was hard for them to get going like they did in week 1. So this Carter Schultz led Stallions defense really cranking it up a notch. They had 3 sacks on the night. And that was Carter Schultz getting one of them, Mike Purcell getting another one, and then Luke Carazola getting the third. So, they got to the quarterbacks 3 different times, and I say quarterbacks because we'll talk about that in a second, but they got back there 3 times to take a quarterback down. And they piled up on the quarterback hits too. So the quarterbacks were not comfortable in this game, and it was by and large a result of Carter Schultz and that defense. They knocked 9 passes down, and they had 1 interception, which was a turning point in the game by Greer Martini. So again, this defense really putting in the work and really taking it to the Hotshots offense, who took it to them in week 1. So they had a lot to prove, and they had a lot to turn around from that week 1 performance, and they did. They only held Wolford to 127 total yards of passing. So, and of course, that's only in 1 half. So even still, it wasn't that great of a performance for Wolford, who lit them up in week 1 and had those 4 touchdowns. So again, it's something that the Stallions defense, I know Dennis Erickson really wanted to put some pressure on Wolford, and they did. And they managed to do a very good job on defense, keeping that Hotshots offense at bay. One of the best offenses in the league going into week 3. And they were able to pretty much have their way with them. And speaking of having their way with them, all 3 running backs that we talked about, with Jarrell Presley, Stockton, and Tim Cook, they all ran wild over the last couple of weeks, but they were held in check. Jarrell Presley, 10 carries on 34 yards on 10 carries. I mean, that's not very good for Jarrell Presley, who came into the league, one of the top rushers in the league. So for him to be held under 40 yards means that defense pretty much had a stranglehold on that running game. And again, this is for Arizona needing to throw the ball a lot in the second half. But even Jarrell Presley in those instances was able to get yards on carries, but this time he was unable to do so. A 3.4 average per carry. And it just didn't look very good. Stockton had 5 carries for 13. Tim Cook, 3 carries for only 5 yards. And we saw Cook explode last week, and he only got 5 yards this week. So the fact that the Stallions defense was able to hold this whole entire Arizona offense just really spoke loudly to their preparation and to the fact that they played up for the home crowd. A home cooking really playing a part in this victory for the Stallions. So as good as the defense was for the Stallions, Arizona did not look the same without John Wolford. And to be honest with you, this is what happened. I'm sure if you've watched the game, you already know, but if you did not get a chance to watch the game, Wolford was quarterbacking obviously to start. And then at the very first play in the second half, he got hit and went down through an interception and ended up leaving the game there, making way for Trevor Knight to replace him. And again, that interception was a result of Wolford just not being able to get the pass off all the way. And then as he was going to the ground, he got hurt, and it was a pretty bad injury. Obviously, it kept him out for the rest of the night. But, you could actually see and hear the fact that he was definitely in pain. So with Wolford going down, again, Trevor Knight comes in. But, up until then, it was the Rashard Ross show, and it was, John Wolford finding Rashard Ross, who is one of his favorite receivers. And Ross had a pretty good night himself. He had a receiving touchdown. But once that happened, and once Trevor Knight came in, Rashard Ross disappeared. He barely got any more targets the rest of the night, and Trevor Knight could not have enough time to look for him down the field. And so he basically disappeared. And then Trevor Knight, again, coming in relief, did not do all that well. I mean, he got 95 yards, but he was only 8 of 17 for the rest of the night. So in a half of football, he was 8 for 17 with 95 yards. So again, not a very good night for Trevor Knight because of that Stallions defense. They just never had a real rhythm, did the Arizona Hotshots offense in that second half. And really, even in the first half, it wasn't like they were completely on the same page. There was a lot of trouble rushing. There was a lot of just missed opportunities. And they went into the half tied at 9 apiece, which was good for Arizona because up until then, it didn't look like they were playing all that well. Held scoreless in the first and was able to get 9 points in the second. So really, again, not a lot of rhythm for that Arizona Hotshots offense as we've seen in the past couple of weeks. And then that longest drive in the second half that they had with Trevor Knight was kept alive mainly due to penalties. So there was not very many sustained drives in that second half for the Arizona Hotshots offense. So again, something we weren't used to seeing in those first 2 weeks. One of the hottest teams in the league, the team that was picked to actually be the champion of the league, really got humbled in that game against Salt Lake. And then we turn to the Stallions receiving core, which did not get a lot of press and wasn't very heralded coming into the weekend, but they managed to impress, and more than the wide receivers actually impressing. Josh Woodrum didn't look all that bad either. He was 22 of 31 for 178 and a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, but he was helped out a lot by that receiving core, and that receiving core is DeMornay Pearsonell, who caught all 8 of his targets for 90 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. And let me tell you, Pearsonell is legit. He was there and was making the great catches and really, again, was a great weapon for Woodrum to find. And when you can get a guy catching all 8 of his targets for almost 100 yards and a touchdown, you've got yourself a good receiver. So Pearsonell breaking out this week for that Stallions offense. And Kenny Bell, somebody who going into the season I was pretty high on, but we hadn't really seen because of him being out for injury and all that other good stuff. He came in, caught all 4 of his targets for 39 yards. So, I mean, not huge yardage, but he did catch all 4 of his targets. And then Kalen Clay, 5 catches on 7 targets for 27 yards. And that's another guy. So those three receivers right there had not been on the field together up until this week. And really, the 3 of them are probably one of the more, I guess, I would say, the 3 talented receiving core in the league because if you look at the rest of the league and you look at some of the receivers, there's only maybe one, there might be two on a receiving core. But this receiving core actually looks like it's got three really solid receivers who play very well together, run good routes, and have Woodrum to throw them the ball. So I would say in the future, you might want to keep your eye out for Demarnay Pearson-L, Kenny Bell, and Kalen Clay. If the three of those guys can all stay on the field and all stay healthy at the same time, you could be looking at a very, very lethal Salt Lake Stallion receiving game. So for them to, because again, we were thinking all along that, the leading rusher the leading receiver on this team was going to be Anthony Denham again. Because again, he was one of the guys that was huge coming into the weekend. But he only had a target and he didn't get a catch on that target. So it's just a matter of those three names: Demarnay Pearson-L, Kenny Bell, and Kalen Clay. And look out for Brian Timms too. I mean, I know that we said coming in, if you listened to, if you read my article in week 1, I was touting Brian Timms as being one of the good receivers coming into this Stallion offense. But he had a catch for 6 yards on one target, but he's a tall guy. So he might be able to add a fourth dimension to that Stallions receiving game. And if he does, look out, because that could be a very potent offense coming out of the West. So it is the Salt Lake Stallions and it is the Arizona Hotshots against Salt Lake coming away with that win in impressive fashion. I mean, again, to hold the Arizona Hotshots to 15 points overall when they'd been scoring at will was definitely impressive. So again, the three things to take away from this game, obviously, like I said, was the Stallions defense and really Carter Schultz, who has come to play, and everybody's talking about him right now. He is on the every media player, every media personnel's lips. He is the du jour, right? The defensive guy du jour. But he, for good reason, he definitely led that defense, and you could tell that he is emerging now as the leader of that defense. So, and then the second thing to take away is that without John Wolford, the Arizona Hotshots do not look as impressive offensively with Trevor Knight. Now, again, that could be a lot about the fact that there was not a lot of reps for Trevor Knight in that, backup role, and that the offense is just not ready and he doesn't have the full playbook at hand. But even still, in the week of backup quarterbacks, we've seen some pretty electric performances by some backup quarterbacks. So the fact that Trevor couldn't come in and really deliver, and it wasn't again like the Hotshots were out of the game. They still had an opportunity to come back and win the game. They went in tied, and they still could have won, but they did not. So that puts the Hotshots at 2-1, and that puts the Stallions with their first win at 1-2. And they are last in the West, and Arizona is now tied with the San Diego Fleet, who we'll talk about in a little bit, at 2-1 in the West. A couple of little flip-flopping, positions there, but it really, again, this Arizona team has a lot to deal with now if Wolford cannot come back and play next week. So for Arizona, I'm sure they're hoping that Wolford can come in, and for Salt Lake, they are turning their attention to next week, and they're really, again, they're going to make a run, and they're going to really try to power this defense all the way, because they've seen what's happening in Birmingham with the defense, and I'm pretty sure they're going to take that away. So it is Salt Lake and Orlando. They've got their hands cut out for them. Two of the more powerful offenses in the league back-to-back for Salt Lake. So, again, that defense has got their work cut out for them. And then Arizona is going to be against the Legends at home. And, again, that is going to be a game where Arizona can get right if Wolford's in it. And hopefully if Trevor is starting, he can get in it against this Atlanta defense that has looked okay. They're not bad. They kept him in the game, and we'll talk about that later too. But just a matter of whether or not Arizona can find rhythm against that Legends defense. So, all right, those were the three things. Oh yeah, and then the Stallions receiving core number 3. Sorry, not oh yeah, but definitely that receiving core. Keep your eyes open for that trio of Pearson-L, Bell, and Clay next week as they try to, again, keep up with that high-powered Orlando offense. So, all right, those are the 3 things you need to know. Let's go to the next game. Second game of the week actually provided just about as much drama as the first game of the week, and we had a game between the Orlando Apollos and the Memphis Express in a game where everybody, and I'm sure everybody in the AAF world, did not give Memphis much of a shot in this game, and rightfully so. I mean, up until now, they'd been looking very anemic offensively, and in defensively, they were doing okay. I mean, it wasn't like, they weren't a very good defensive team, but offensively, they had no leadership whatsoever. They looked lost. There was Zach Stacy, and that was probably the only thing that you could really hang your hat on. But a lot of that has changed, and this is the 3 things. Here are the 3 things that you need to know coming out of that Orlando and Memphis game. Garrett Gilbert just on another level. I mean, look, he didn't have a great passing game. He had an off passing game, if you could put that in quotes. But Garrett Gilbert has proven that he is one of the, if not the most elite quarterback in this league so far. His passing numbers, again, were nothing impressive. It was almost akin to his week 1 numbers. He was 14 of 28 for 207 yards and a touchdown. But the real value of Garrett Gilbert is his leadership on the field and the fact that he is just collected in any situation that he's in. He didn't look rattled. He never looked like he was out of control of his offense, which couldn't be said on the other side of the football. But we'll get to that in a second. But again, Garrett Gilbert just looking like a complete and total pro out there as he is. Again, spending a little bit of time with the Panthers at the end of the season. And a guy that is on the cusp of being in the NFL should look as poised and confident as he does. But again, where Garrett Gilbert did not kill them with his arm this time, he got a very key rushing touchdown there in the third quarter. It was getting to the point where Memphis looked like they might have had some hope and might actually come back to, if not win it, make it very, very, very close. But Garrett Gilbert on a just ridiculous scramble, left the pocket and just ran. And I don't know how he stayed, 1, in bounds, and 2, was able to get into the end zone. But 21 yards later, he got in the end zone for his rushing touchdown. And it basically almost kept the game completely out of reach for Memphis. This was, like I said, a game that was starting to close up a little bit and that Memphis was finding a little bit of life. But with Garrett Gilbert just making that rushing touchdown possible with his legs, basically put the game out of reach for Memphis, and they had a lot more work ahead of them than they would have if they would have not given up that touchdown to Garrett Gilbert. So again, a very impressive drive that led them to that situation. And Garrett Gilbert's leadership definitely on display there in that game. Really, if you watch the body language of Garrett Gilbert, if you pay attention to the way he carries himself, he definitely has that professional appearance. And so that's the difference. I mean, that's the difference in a lot of winning teams. So, and even though, again, the Apollos offense did not have the same sort of explosive success as it did in the week previous, he still found a way to win. He still found a way to get his team to play together and to come together and to not fall apart when they very well could have, especially as the tide turned there in that second half on them. They very well could have withered and they very well could have went away because, again, the lead was not immense. And in fact, they came off of such an emotional shootout against San Antonio that a game like this could have very easily gotten out of control for them. And they could have ended up not winning in a trap game, especially with the play of the man that we're about to talk about next, and that is Zach Mettenberger's. You can't even say Zach. Yeah, I was going to say Metten Bacon Cheeseburger just to give an homage to our folks over there at the Memphis Express and Goal podcast. Hi, Danielle Michelle. But yeah, so Zach Mettenberger, who came in relief of Christian Hackenberg, finally. Oh, man, I don't know how long everybody that was watching these games was screaming for Hackenberg to be benched. And I get, we've made this argument before. We've talked about this before, right? You don't pull somebody and you stick with somebody and you try to develop them and you try to get them to be the leader. But there comes a point where that's got to end. And that point finally came in the second half of the game here against the Orlando Apollos, because Hackenberger was going out and doing another Hackenberg. Yes, Hackenberg was, he just came out and did Hackenberg things. Threw 2 interceptions through that first half, looked absolutely horrendous, and just could not get things going once again. And so, finally, after 2.5 weeks of clamoring, we get Zach Mettenberger, and boy, were we treated to something amazing. And look, it was completely 180. Just the feel, the look, and how everybody reacted to Mettenberger on that field in the second half. It was a actual fun offense to watch. And Mettenberger came in that first drive of the second half. They got the ball. He took them down the field and led them to a touchdown. I mean, something that, first of all, hadn't happened through the air all season long. Mettenberger did, and he came in and did it right off the bat. You know, a 30-yard, just absolute strike to Devin Lucien there, and that was his third pass attempt of the game. He was 2 of 3 on that drive, and that second one was a touchdown pass to Lucien, and it was a good pass. And more impressive than the pass itself was how he was able to get himself out of the pocket to throw that pass. He moved very well in the pocket and moved around enough to find himself and buy himself enough time to make that throw downfield, something we had not seen Hackenberg do. And that was the thing about Hackenberg, is that he didn't move around in the pocket very much, and he complained that nobody was doing their job. You know, look, if you don't have time to make a play, make time for yourself. That's what Mettenberger did, was made time for himself to make that throw and make those plays. You can't always rely on everybody around you to do their job, especially this early on. You have to, if you're the quarterback, you have to be able to improvise and to make those type of plays. Mettenberger came in, improvised, and made those kind of plays. And he actually looked very crisp and very solid doing that. And for him to come in and give this Memphis offense a spark of life, I think is good news for this Memphis team, because they now, again, fall to 0-3. But there's stuff to be hopeful for now, because I think that this offense with Mettenberger, to get another week of practice underneath him, could very well be a very good offense going forward. So, with Zach Stacy back there, and now somebody that we'll talk about in our third point, they are looking poised to actually make a decent run, and this defense has always been good. So now they may have an offense to complement that defense with Mettenberger in it. And here's the thing, with Mettenberger, we saw a composure akin to Garrett Gilbert, right? Where he was calm, he was collected, he was cool. He didn't overreact, he didn't panic, he didn't yell at everybody. He was not the immature, irresponsible leader that Christian Hackenberg is. Mettenberger came in, and I know that the broadcasters were making a lot of big deal about the fact that he had more experience and more starts under his belt. Be that what it is, but he just is more professional in his approach to the quarterback position than Hackenberg. And you could tell by the way the players responded to him and around him that they were buying in, even though he was the backup quarterback coming in, the third string quarterback even, when early on in the season, he was not even in the conversation to start. Really, it was him. It was Hackenberg and Silver, but with Mettenberger coming in, the offense was buying into it, and they were ready, and they were ready to make plays for him. And somebody that was really, I don't know if it was a direct correlation or if it just happened, but boy, how about Sherman Beatty, right? Here's the third thing you need to know, is that the 2 running back names that you need to put on your radar if you have not already. And you need to get used to hearing them. And it's D'Ernest Johnson and Sherman Beatty. D'Ernest Johnson for the Apollos. We talked about him a little bit last week, right, as part of our fantasy 4-pack, and we went back to the well. And if you did, you were happy. He had 13 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown, added 2 receptions on 3 targets for 18 yards. So not a bad day for D'Ernest Johnson, fantasy-wise either. So if you like I said, if you invested the money in him, you were pleasantly surprised. So, but for Johnson, he came in and he carried the load, and he did what he needed to do, and he took some pressure off of Gilbert, who, like I said, was not having the greatest day. So being able to hand the ball off to D'Ernest Johnson was definitely a help for Gilbert and the Apollos. Still no signs of Akeem Hunt. I think the Akeem Hunt experiment in Orlando might very well be over, because it was D'Ernest Johnson that basically carried the load for the Apollos. Akeem got 2 carries, but Davion Smith was another guy that actually we're not mentioning now, but we probably will later on. So Davion Smith had 8 carries for 52 yards. And it was a good change of pace for D'Ernest Johnson. But again, that's a name on the rise, and that's one that you're going to probably hear a lot more of going forward in the next 7 games of the season. But I will say, Sherman Beatty, 8 carries, 59 yards in a game where, Zach Stacy was given the ball in that first half a ton. Overall, he got 14 carries. He only got 29 yards in a Trent Richardson-esque 2.1 yards per carry. On the night for Zach Stacy, and Terrence McGee getting 4 of 28, but it was Sherman Beatty's show in the second half. He came in a huge way. He had 8 carries on the night for 59 yards, 7.4 yards per carry average, which is not a bad average when you are talking about trying to establish the run and take pressure off of Zach Mettenberger, who had just come in. So again, I don't know, like I said, if the two things had anything to do with each other, because again, as soon as Zach Beatty came in, or Zach Beatty, as soon as Sherman Beatty came in, Zach Mettenberger looked better, and because Zach Mettenberger came in at the second quarter and Sherman Beatty looked better. So I don't know. Who knows if the two things were actually a result of each other, but the fact that they ended up working together worked well for the Memphis Express, as they made the game a lot closer than everybody had assumed it would be going in. And almost, they were really in a position that they could have won had a couple more things gone right, especially in the first quarter, or in the first half rather. So Orlando walks away with this one, 21-17 over the Express. And again, that Express defense is looking very strong. Definitely somebody to be contended with, because again, if you can hold Garrett Gilbert to 207 yards passing, you're doing something right. And the Express, I think, have a lot to look forward to. They have a lot to look up or look forward to, basically. They just basically now have a complete team that if they can just get more out of their offense now with Mettenberger, they'll be good. The receivers in this game, Dontez Bird had 2 catches for 51 yards, and then a Devin Lucien with the 3 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. And Gerard Shepard, how about him coming in with his 1 catch for a touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown catch from Mettenberger, who now has the single season lead and record for touchdown passes for the Memphis Express. Definitely, again, a lot of weapons here for Mettenberger if he can just find a way to use them. What does that mean now for the Apollos? Well, it just means that they are going to have to continue to do what they do, and they're going to be, I think, okay. They're 3-0 now. They are one of the only 2 undefeated teams in the league, and they still look like one of the teams to beat in this league. So I would not be surprised if they move forward next weekend and absolutely look like the team that they had looked like in the previous weeks. But then again, who knows? With all of this now, Salt Lake on the rise, they're taking on Orlando, and Salt Lake may be able to have a strong defense just like Memphis, and could hold Garrett Gilbert at bay long enough to take the win, just like they did against Arizona. So lots of great storylines coming out of this week because of the fact that we're seeing storylines play out that did not play out in the first 2 weeks, especially with Mettenberger now coming in and taking the helm for Memphis. And for Memphis, again, they are 0-3, but they are coming off of a stronger performance than they're ready for. But they're going up against a Fleet team that is also on the rise, and we'll talk about them in a little bit too. So tough matchups for both the Express and the Apollos in week 4. So, all right, that's it. Let's move on to the next game. Actually, let's go to halftime. with 17 carries for 46 yards and 3 TDs, along with 3 receptions for 4 yards and 1 2-point conversion. Trent Richardson and the Birmingham Iron is this week's Player of the Week. Let's take a look at your fantasy leaders for Week 3 at quarterback. Garrett Gilbert with 22.58 fantasy points on Fanball. He had 207 passing yards, 1 passing TD, 43 rushing yards, and 1 rushing TD. At running back, Trent Richardson of the Birmingham Iron with 28 points. He had 46 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 receptions, 4 receiving yards, and 1 2-point conversion. At wide receiver, Nelson Spruce coming in at 21 points on Fanball. 4 receptions, 50 yards, with 2 receiving touchdowns. At flex, Jaquan Gardner breaking off a huge run, coming in at 24.3 points. He had 122 rushing yards, 1 rushing TD, 2 receptions for 21 yards to go along with it. If you want to play daily fantasy, the only place you can play for the AAF is on Fanball. Make sure you go down now to fanball.com and set your Week 4 lineups. The first game on Sunday was a good one if you were a Birmingham Iron fan. Not so much if you were a fan of the Atlanta Legends. But one thing is for certain, we know of the 3 things that we need to know this week. One of them, of course, is that Trent Richardson can score. That man is a bulldozer in the red zone, but he's still not really putting up the long runs. His long of this game was 8 yards. I don't know how it is that it is physically possible for a guy to score as much as he does, but does not break off any long runs whatsoever. Trent Richardson, you heard the stats there on our fantasy recap. He had 28 points in fantasy on Fanball, which was pretty good. But he only had 46 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 receptions to add to it, but only 4 yards. So he's not even averaging, barely a full yard per catch. And then that 2-point conversion, but 46 yards. I mean, the guy he's still under 50 yards, of total offense altogether. But with those 3 touchdown runs, he definitely exerted power in the red zone. And for a guy this is a marquee get for the AAF, right? When Trent Richardson signed and when they announced Trent Richardson being one of the players in the AAF, this was one of the players that was supposed to give them some validity. And he is a marquee name, obviously. And when you score 3 touchdowns in a league, it doesn't matter what league it is, you're doing pretty well. So, Trent Richardson actually providing the headlines this week was good for the AAF, scoring 3 touchdowns. But if you dig a little deeper and figure out how he's doing it, it's not really all that great. He doesn't look explosive. He just keeps getting the ball quite a bit and wears the defense down. Now, obviously, he didn't score all 3 of these in the fourth quarter, which he's been prone to do in the past, scoring in the fourth quarter. But, again, he wears these defenses down. He knocks against them so much that at some point they part ways, and he ends up scoring on these runs. And in fact, one of those runs was that type of a thing where it was 5 or 6 yards out, and he busted through finally and got in for the touchdown. But still, he's not doing it in flashy form. It's gritty. It's all about what Alabama is, right? They're hard-nosed, they're gritty. They're used to not necessarily flashy play. They're just get to it and play football. So he's perfect for these Birmingham fans. They love them some Trent Richardson, and that's okay because that's what you should. You should love the players that are on your team. Now, this actually begs the question, with Trent Richardson doing as well, and I put that in air quotes, as he is here in the AAF, will that give him a shot back in the NFL? And that question, I don't know if that's even going to be answered. I think that the NFL has seen enough of Trent Richardson in the NFL to not warrant another shot. Will he? It's hard to say. Does he fit in any of the type of schemes that are being run nowadays, right? I mean, this is running back by committee in most of these NFL teams now. And Trent Richardson doesn't seem to be a run by committee guy if he's only picking up 2.1 yards per carry. He's not a 3-down back for sure. Is he a first down back? You don't want to get 2 yards on first down. You don't want to get a 2-yard carry on first down. You don't even want to get a 2-yard carry on second down. Like, you want somebody who's averaging at least 3 or 4 yards a carry to get you moving the chains eventually. So I don't know. I don't know that Trent Richardson will get another look. People that look at tape know a lot more than I do, and they'll see that quite possibly he, the way he's going about it. But then again, I could be wrong. I'm not an NFL scout, so I don't know. But I'd like to see him get another shot at the NFL because I feel like he might do better. I don't know. But anyways, Trent Richardson, bulldozer, getting 3 touchdowns and having fun. He's one of those guys that are just having fun, and I respect that. I don't care how it gets done. I respect the fact that he's having fun. I may tease him along the way. I may tease all of these players along the way, but at the end of the day, they're having fun. And the fact that they're having fun playing the game, I'm having fun watching the game. I think it all goes hand in hand. So anyways, the first thing you need to take away from this game is that Trent Richardson can score and score at will. The takeaway number 2, all these are pretty much going to be takeaways for Birmingham because the only really takeaway from Atlanta, the only thing you probably need to know is that offense needs help. Sims cannot do it all by himself. In fact, Sims needs to probably find the way of Christian Hackenberg and maybe sit for Aaron Murray, which I'm surprised did not happen at all in that game. I don't know how or why Aaron Murray did not at least get a shot in the last part of that game when it was clear that Atlanta was not about to come back and win. Birmingham, they won 28-12, which was a very solid victory. It was 9-6 going into the half, and it wasn't as if Birmingham was running away with it, but Atlanta found no answers in that second half at all. And in fact, they ended up losing again by the score of 28-12. So, Sims needs to find a rhythm or sit down, really, is really all it is to it. And then, you talk about the rushing game for Atlanta was non-existent. The leading rusher was Matt Sims, and he had 2 carries for 27 yards. Akram Wadley only had 9 yards. Denard Robinson, 7 yards. Lawrence Pittman, 6 yards. Again, not a strong showing by any of these. Leading receiver for Atlanta was Shantavius Jones. He had 4 receptions on 8 targets for 72 yards. And then Malachi Jones, 3 receptions for 58 yards on 5 targets. Monte Crockett with the only touchdown catch for the Legends. So it wasn't a very impressive day for the Legends on offense. And that was because of what we're going to talk about is the third reason. But let's talk about this. Let's go back and talk about Luis Perez. Still without a touchdown pass in the season. And it's amazing because Birmingham is now 3-0, and their starting quarterback has tossed 0 touchdown passes this far in the season. Most of the touchdowns, if not all of them, have come off the legs of Trent Richardson. It is amazing that a professional football team can have no touchdown passes and yet be undefeated. It's almost unheard of. But that is just how good the defense is, and we'll talk about that again in a little bit. But he had his lowest passing output of the season. He had 160 yards passing, which, like I said, was the lowest output of the season for Luis Perez. But he just manages to find a way to win. He's managing to keep his team composed and move the ball when he needs to. And again, he's not getting huge runs from his running backs, and he's not putting up huge passing numbers. But again, he really doesn't have to because the Iron Curtain is real. Ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely 100% real. And it was evident early on as the Legends were lined up on the goal line, 4th and goal from the 1, and they didn't punch it in. It was a failed attempt to score on a 4th and goal, and that set the tone. That really honestly set the tone for the entire rest of the game. The fact that the Legends could not get it in past the Iron Curtain defense that Birmingham has, and they were all over the field all game long. They were giving Matt Sims a whole lot to deal with in the passing game, and then they also were just all over the place in the secondary. They had 3 interceptions of Matt Sims and a fumble recovery in the game. So the defense was setting up the offense with good field position, first of all, except for that 4th and 1. They had 99 yards to contend with on that one. But, for the most part, there was no real effort or no real possibility. Hard to find that word, that Atlanta could put anything together offensively. Again, with 0 running game and putting the onus to win all on Matt Sims, it was difficult. I mean, Sims, for his credit, had 328 yards, but he had 48 pass attempts. So again, that shows you that, if you can't rely on a running game, and when the person that get the most touches and most carries gets 5 carries for 6 yards, then you're in trouble. You're definitely in trouble. And there's no way that Atlanta's offense could keep up with that defense. And the Iron Curtain, as they call it over there in Birmingham, is certainly legit and is arguably the best defense still in the league. I know a lot of people were saying that maybe Memphis could rival them or San Antonio at the early set of the year. But no, it's definitely the Birmingham Iron defense that walks away with the title, especially after this week. Jeremy Falk getting in on a quarterback hit on Sims, and he also had a sack as well. Kerry Sales had a sack, and he got to Sims 3 times and hit him. And then Devin Taylor and Jonathan Massaquoi both had sacks as well. So this, Massaquoi had a quarterback hit, not a sack. Devin Taylor had a sack. And Casey Sales. So again, everybody was around Matt Sims, and everybody got a piece of Matt Sims if they were on the Birmingham defense, and that is going to go a long way for the rest of the season in helping Birmingham really come up with huge wins, and especially if Luis Perez still, I asked a question on Twitter as whether or not Luis Perez was going to get his first touchdown, and everybody overwhelmingly said yes, but I did not share their enthusiasm and or optimism that Perez was going to toss that extra or that first touchdown pass, and guess what? He did not. Still without a touchdown pass, but he didn't need it. He had Trent Richardson punching it in, and he had his defense that really came through and just, again, absolutely manhandled this Atlanta Legends offense, and they're going to be searching for answers. They really are. It's just not a good offense yet. And I know their offensive coordinator, another one, left a couple of days before the season. So what is Atlanta going to do? They had their head coach, their first offensive coordinator, now their second offensive coordinator go out the door. It's definitely a bad situation for the Atlanta Legends. So we'll see if they can get their act together, and we'll see if at some point they can pull it together. But in this case, they did not, and they ended up losing the game 28-12 in what looked like it could have been a promising game for the Legends in the first half. Just did not end up that way in the second half. So again, it is Birmingham improving to 3-0, Atlanta going to 0-3. And they are both riding completely different waves heading into week 4. So, all right, that was the 3 things you need to know from that game. Let's get to the last game of the night. The last game of the weekend was yet another rematch, this time in the week 1 matchup that we saw first of the season, the San Diego Fleet taking on the San Antonio Commanders for round 2 of their rematch action. And this one, much like the first, ended up a little differently than the first meeting. In this one, the San Diego Fleet came on top of the San Antonio Commanders, and it was a very, very good game overall, and there was a lot of fun stuff to see and to watch, and I hope that people were watching. Again, it was a fun night of football, and the Fleet came ahead with the win 31-11. 3 things to take away from this game is 1, Philip Nelson can win games. It's amazing, but yes, Philip Nelson can win games. And it wasn't like he had a super impressive night. He was 17 of 25 for 193. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. So the stat line doesn't necessarily show the way that he ended up winning this game because really it started out disastrous for Philip Nelson. It started out about as disastrous as you could possibly start out a game. Your first pass attempt goes for an interception. I mean, that's automatically something you don't want to see coming out the gates. But then to turn around and watch the very next play go for a touchdown against you, that could shake a lot of quarterbacks. But it did not shake Philip Nelson. He managed to stay cool and composed through that whole exchange there. I mean, it was a wild start. Again, the Fleet took the field first, and Philip Nelson cocked back and threw himself an interception. And then we watched Logan Woodside just bomb a touchdown pass to Big Play McKay. And that's how that game started. So again, any other quarterback would have definitely felt the pressure of the situation, but Philip Nelson settled down. He actually managed to work through that interception and take his team down a couple of drives later for a touchdown of his own. So, again, that's Philip Nelson showing a little maturity in the face of adversity, and I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be good for the Fleet. I think his play is well suited for what they're asking him to do. And again, people have said it before, and I know that our friend Daniel over at Memphis Express and Goal, their podcast is constantly saying that, Mike Martz has a very complicated offense, and it takes a while for offenses to learn it and for players to learn the playbook. So as we see these guys open the playbook up a little bit more, I think you're going to see Philip Nelson really fill in that role of what Mike Martz wants him to do and what the whole city of San Diego wants him to do, and that's just continue to win. So, I mean, it tightened things up now in the West. There is a race now in the West for first, where it thought, a lot of people said San Antonio rather was going to walk away with this and be the team to beat. But now San Diego is making a very, very strong case for themselves. They improved to 2-1. San Antonio drops to 1-2 now, having lost their last two. And now they're searching for answers where San Diego is starting to find theirs. And they found a lot of it in their defense, because their defense came to play, folks. The Destroyers, as our friends at the shipyard and over there like to call them, the Destroyers did very well last night. In fact, they got 2 interceptions. One of them for a pick six with AJ Tarpley doing the honors, and then Jordan Martin got the other one. So that was a huge switch in momentum as well for AJ Tarpley to get that interception and that pick six. And that just really, again, solidified San Diego's dominance in this game and really showed San Antonio that this was not the same Fleet team that they tossed around in week 1. And Mike Bercovici was not on the field anymore to take hits. So Philip Nelson did very well, and then his defense answered the call as well and did equally as well, scoring him points so that he didn't have to have it all on his shoulders. So with the defense stepping up and handling the Commanders' offense last night, it was just it was good to see. It was good to see the Fleet's defense really step it up. They had 5 sacks on the night as well, so it wasn't like Logan Woodside had a ton of time to operate. And then, so again, we see Marquise Williams come in at quarterback, and I'm a little confused. This isn't one of the 3 things to watch, but it should be. We'll just consider this 3.5 of something to watch. And I'm not a big fan of quarterback by committee. I understand running back by committee to a certain extent, but I've never been a big fan of platooning your quarterback position. If your quarterback is your quarterback, keep him as your quarterback. If you want to come in, now there's in the CFL, there's opportunity to bring in somebody to run for a yard and pick up a first down, a very short yardage quarterback. And you usually see that come in on 3rd down or 2nd and short to pick up a yard, and then they come back out. That's okay. But if you're switching quarterbacks just to have a change of pace quarterback, it hardly ever works. I hardly ever see it work. And Williams came in and, completed all 4 of his passes, but it wasn't like they were all that spectacular. And he can run. That's great. But he didn't lead them down the field to score, and he didn't necessarily even come in on any effective drives. So if you're going to kill the momentum of your starting quarterback, do it with somebody that you're going to replace him with, a la Zach Mettenberger and Christian Hackenberg, or Aaron Murray if he would have come in relief of Matt Sims. Don't take out a starting quarterback that has actually been doing okay to put in somebody just to change of pace, because that confuses not the defense, it confuses the offense more than it does the defense. And so, again, that was present in the fact that San Diego was managed to handle both of those quarterbacks very effectively and not keep giving up big plays like they did in week 1. But people actually, somebody they did give up a big play to and continue to all night was Trey Williams. Holy cow, the running back for San Antonio. In last week where we saw Kenneth Farrow do his thing, Trey Williams stepped in, finally active. And there was a lot of San Antonio reporters. And in fact, Cole Thompson, who was on a couple of weeks ago, was talking about Trey Williams, if he would be active, to watch out for him. And boy, should you have watched out for him. In fact, he had 7 carries for 75 yards, a long of 30. He had 2 receptions on 2 targets for 13 yards as well. But boy, that second half was all Trey Williams. They just fed him the ball continually, and he kept doing good things with it. So basically, he wound up with those 75 yards all in the second half. I mean, it wasn't like a lot of them came in the first half, but he is now making a case for one of the better running backs in the league. So for Trey Williams to come in and step on the scene was certainly something to witness, but did not upstage the play of Jaquan Gardner. Boy, Jaquan, you want to talk about a running back, 122 yards on the night and a beautiful 83-yard touchdown run that just looked like he just parted the Red Sea and ran straight for the goal line. There was a half of a cut to find the hole. And once he found the hole, he was gone. Now, toward the end of that run, it looked as if he might get caught from behind, but he certainly did not. But Jaquan Gardner putting up such a huge game, 12 carries, 122 yards with that long of 83, that touchdown. He actually did catch 2 passes for 21 yards as well. So, Jaquan Gardner, the guy is definitely set himself up to be one of the elite running backs, and one of those guys that is now having his name tossed around as a viable option in the NFL. And you never know. He very well could be. He's a very strong running back, and when he gets the ball, he can do some special things. He just does. He needs to work on a lot of what Trent Richardson needs to work on, and that's making longer carries than longer carries out of what he gets. But when he can break off 83-yard runs the way he did, boy, it was fun to watch him. So, again, Jaquan Gardner being all he could be for the San Diego Fleet last night. And, to me, this was one of the more entertaining games of the night. Even though it was a pretty lopsided score, I still enjoyed watching it, and I still thought that, both teams actually brought pretty good competition to the field, 31-11. But it felt a lot closer than 31-11, I suppose. A couple of big defensive plays made it a little closer. So defense is really stepping up this week. That was the theme in week 3. There was a lot of great defensive play all across the board. So I know there was somebody out there that said the offenses were the ones dominant this week, but I feel it was opposite. I feel like the defense has actually had the upper hand this week. So again, into that game, San Diego improves to 2-1, and they are sitting atop the West, and now San Antonio is at 1-2, and they are looking up at the rest of the league, the rest of the West at least. And in the 3 things you needed to know, again, Philip Nelson can win games. That's what it is. San Diego's defense definitely came to play. And Trey Williams now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the league, Trey Williams, to the AAF. Great running back and huge potential, and it'll be fun to watch him as he progresses through this league. So, all right, that is a trip around the league, and we looked at 3 things to take away from all these games. I hope you enjoyed the new format. Please tell me if you did, or if you want me to change it. I do enjoy the 3 things. I know that, mostly the game recaps can get played out, especially if all you're doing is reading box scores. But if we're looking at specific things to look at and take away from, I think you get a little more out of it. So, like I said, let me know what you think, and we'll keep doing it. If not, then I'll take it to the scrapyard. Listen, this is a developmental podcast. I'm a complimentary podcast to all the other podcasts out there. So at some point we want to reach the big time, right? So, all right, that'll be it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the show right now. And that'll do it. Another episode of the Alliance Football Podcast is in the books. Our game recaps, or now, as we call them, the 3 things you should know from these games, are all complete. Hope you enjoyed the football weekend. I hope you are getting ready for the next football weekend. I cannot wait for all the games this weekend. Week 4 already on us, man. We are almost halfway through the season already. Blink and you miss it, right? But no, go through and watch all of these games. Now, I didn't know this. If you didn't know this, please be aware that if you go to the AAF website right now and you click on any of the game recaps, it will automatically start a replay of the game. So you can actually watch full game replays from the AAF website. Now, They don't have any of the sound or any of the broadcast or any of the down and distance stuff that they have on there, but it is still the football game, and you can still watch it for what it's worth. And maybe, again, if you're just watching it for film purposes, it's perfect. Then you not have to worry about all the extra stuff. So just a little something to know and a little something to think about next time you're thinking, man, I want to watch some games. So, all right, that is it for this show. Again, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this great alliance that we have going on and entertaining football in the spring. So, until next week, we are the Alliance. We are strong, we are proud, and we are growing week by week, and we're going to have some fun. So, we'll see you on Friday with our game previews and a lot of more fun stuff for you to listen to. So, we'll see you next week.